So why do many millionaires appear broke? I think it has a lot to do with how they became millionaires, what their journey looked like and how they initially saved up that money to become a millionaire. And there's a famous study that was done by a gentleman named Thomas Crowley that looked at millionaires over a 3-year period. He looked at over 200 millionaires and over 100 people that he classified as poor, and said, what are the differences between the habits of these two groups? And again, over a 3-year period, so it's a pretty significant study. And so I'm going to share the result of that study, but importantly also at the end of this, I'm going to share my take on all of this. And I think you're going to find it helpful, so be sure to watch until the end. So jumping into Crowley's study, he really classified millionaires into 4 categories. And I think a lot of the viewers of this channel are going to identify with one of the 4. I suspect many of us are going to identify with the 3rd and 4th. So the first classification of millionaire is what he called a big company climber. So that's somebody that was working at like a Fortune 500 company, probably spent much of their career there, climbed up the corporate ladder, and is now at the peak of their career, is now at the top of that ladder, and is making good money. The second category of millionaire is what Crowley called a virtuoso, somebody that was at the top of their craft. And by craft, he meant, in this example, he meant folks like attorneys, top accountants, physicians, maybe a physician specialist, somebody with highly educated that has a specialized area of expertise and is the best in their field. So that's what he classified as virtuoso. The third category is an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurship is super popular now. I think we're all familiar with it. Somebody that started their own company. You can see where if you started a company and it's been successful, how that's going to generate wealth for you. So that was the third category. And then the fourth category is what he called the saver investor. And that's what I would classify myself in. And I think a lot of the viewers of this channel are either entrepreneurs or they're the saver investors. And what he found there is, this group was really good at saving the money that they made. You've heard me say this before, you need to spend less than what you earn. And they were really good at that. And fortunately, Crowley shares with us some of the data of, how much money they were saving and how they were saving it. So first off, what he found is overall, this group of saver investors was saving 20% or more of their pre-tax income. Now that's hard to do, admittedly. It's easier to do if you're making a lot of money, obviously. But even for people that are making a lot of money, it's hard to do. What were their spendings and how were they able to save 20%? So he looked at the major categories of living. Like for most Americans, the most expensive category for us is housing, followed closely by, believe it or not, automobiles. So what Crowley found is this group was spending 25% or less of their pre-tax income on housing. So they weren't going crazy on the housing, even though they frankly probably could have spent more money on housing, buy a big house to try to impress people. Same thing with cars. Their second largest expense was not automobile, but it was actually food and housing items. So things obviously like groceries, going out to eat, doing laundry, things like that. And what Crowley found there is this group was spending about 15% of their pre-tax income in this category. So, that's enough money to go out a couple times a week, but you're not going out to eat all the time. So most of that money is being spent on groceries and things around the house, as opposed to visiting expensive restaurants on a frequent basis. And I mentioned earlier the automobile expenses. I found this one to be super interesting. So the average American spends about 15% of their pre-tax income on automobiles. So that would be their car payment, their insurance, maintenance, gasoline, things like that. So the average American is about 15%. But interestingly for this group, he found that they were only spending about 5% of their pre-tax income on this category. And you think about it, even if you're making $200,000 a year, 5% of that is, I say only $10,000, but when you factor in gasoline, that's not a whole lot of money to be spending on auto. So I suspect many of these saver investors are like me. You know, for me, I drive a nice car. It's a car that looks good, but it wasn't that expensive for me. And just to let you know, it's a Mini Cooper, a convertible Mini Cooper. And I spent less than $10,000 on that car, and I love that car. It's a great car. It's super fun in the summer, a little tougher in the winter, but you put snow tires on it, it does just fine. So anyways, getting the cars, if you're making $200,000 a year, that's only $10,000 a year for auto expenses, including insurance, maintenance, and fuel. So I suspect many of those saver investors are driving their version of a Mini Cooper as well. So those are the major categories. Now, I did promise at the end of the video I was going to circle back and kind of give you my take on it. And I'm going to do that, but before we go there, just a really quick request. If you're finding this video helpful, please hit the like button. It does help the algorithm, help other people like yourselves find my channel, find my videos. It means a lot to me. And second, please do think about leaving me a comment. I do read the comments. They mean a lot to me. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know if there's other topics that you'd like me to cover in future videos. In fact, fairly soon you're going to see 2 new videos that were ideas from some of you viewers. So thank you for sharing your ideas in there. And the last thing regarding that, be careful. The channel's growing fast enough now that unfortunately there's some scammers in the comments. So please be careful. Okay, my take on all this data. You know, being a saver is important. And for me personally, the easiest way for me to save money, the place I can cut back on that's the least sacrificial for me is the car, right? If most Americans are spending 15% of their pre-tax income on cars, for me, I've never had a car payment. I've always bought used cars. But that's me. And so my advice is you be you, right? What the study found is that these investor savers were saving 20% or more of their pre-tax income. And I think that's a great goal to have. I think the 10% rule that we have in America, personally, I think that's too low. And I know, you know, life is expensive, things happen, you have kids, you have college payments, you have surprises that come up. And if you can't save more than 10% or you can't save anything one year, I've certainly had years where I haven't been able to save, but do as much as you can, and you be you. You save where it makes sense for you. If you really like cars, great. Spend a little bit more in the car and maybe you cut back in some other areas. So that's my take on all this. I think many of us can become millionaires, and those of us that can't, you know, we just do the best that we can. We save as much as we can. Remember, it's not enough just to save, though. You also have to invest. So anyways, I hope you found this helpful. This video helpful. Until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. Remember, you're only young once. Use this time wisely.